It's a warm, Mediterranean morning in ancient Alexandria. Scholars from Athens, Babylon, and distant lands walk through marble corridors, unaware they're standing in humanity's greatest treasure house. Inside these walls, 700,000 scrolls hold every piece of knowledge the world has ever created. Poetry from Homer, mathematics from Euclid, medicine from Hippocrates, all gathered in one magnificent building. For 600 years, this library stood as the intellectual heart of civilization. And then, one day, it was gone. To this day, historians still debate what happened to the Library of Alexandria. But as you dig through the ancient accounts and archaeological evidence, you start to notice something even more tragic. The loss wasn't a single catastrophic event. Winding its way through centuries is a slow, painful decline that saw the world's knowledge gradually disappear. The circumstances that led to this were astonishing, and they gave us one of history's greatest mysteries, a vanished treasure that still haunts us today. Welcome to the first video of Patent Enigma. There's many more to come. We really hope you enjoy. When Alexander the Great conquered Egypt in 332 BCE, the young general had a bold vision. He commissioned a new city on the Mediterranean coast that would bear his name, Alexandria. The location was brilliant, positioned at the crossroads of Africa, Asia, and Europe, with access to the entire known world. But Alexander never saw his city completed. He died at just 32 years old, leaving his empire to be divided among his generals. One of them, Ptolemy, took control of Egypt and transformed Alexander's vision into something even greater. Around 295 BCE, Ptolemy's son, Ptolemy II Philadelphus, started construction on the Great Library as part of a larger complex called the Mouseion. The goal was unprecedented, to collect every single piece of written knowledge that existed. The Ptolemies pursued this mission with obsessive determination. They passed laws requiring all ships docking in Alexandria's harbor to hand over any scrolls they carried. These would be copied by the library's scribes. But here's where things get interesting. Sometimes the Ptolemies would keep the originals and return the copies to the ship owners. They even tricked the city of Athens by borrowing the official state archives, paying a massive deposit of 15 talents of silver as security, then simply keeping the originals and forfeiting the money. The library sent buying agents across the Mediterranean with bags of gold to purchase manuscripts from every corner of the known world. By the 2nd century BCE, the library held somewhere between 400,000 and 700,000 scrolls. To put that in perspective, it would take a person reading 8 hours a day, every single day, around 20 years, just to read through everything once. But the Library of Alexandria wasn't just a storage facility, it was a living university. The Mouseion attracted the greatest minds of antiquity. These scholars didn't pay to be there. Instead, the Ptolemies provided them with free food, accommodation, and exemption from taxes. In return, they were expected to research, teach, and push the boundaries of human understanding. Euclid arrived at the library and wrote his Elements, creating the foundation of geometry that students still study 2,300 years later. Eratosthenes walked into the library's reading room one day and wondered if he could calculate how big the Earth was. Using nothing but shadows, angles, and mathematics, he measured the Earth's circumference with remarkable accuracy. Aristarchus studied the movements of the stars and proposed something revolutionary, that the Earth revolved around the Sun, not the other way around. This idea wouldn't gain acceptance for another 1,800 years. Herophilus performed systematic dissections of human bodies, advancing medicine by centuries. These weren't isolated geniuses working alone. They debated each other, built upon each other's ideas, and created a collaborative environment that wouldn't be matched for over 1,000 years. But here's where the story takes a darker turn. We know the library existed. We know it was magnificent. We know it contained treasures beyond imagination. What we don't know is exactly when or how it was destroyed. There's no single date we can point to, no moment when all the scrolls went up in flames. Instead, the library's destruction appears to have happened gradually over centuries. and figuring out what really happened requires piecing together fragmentary accounts and archaeological clues. The first major disaster struck in 48 BCE. Julius Caesar was in Alexandria, caught in Egypt's civil war between Cleopatra and her brother Ptolemy XIII. Caesar sided with Cleopatra and suddenly found himself trapped and outnumbered. Egyptian forces controlled the harbor, surrounding him with ships. To prevent these ships from being used against him, Caesar made a fateful decision. He ordered his soldiers to set fire to the Egyptian fleet. The fire spread beyond the docks, leaping from ship to warehouses along the waterfront. Ancient writers Plutarch and Cassius Dio recorded that buildings filled with books were destroyed in the blaze. But how much was actually lost? The accounts are frustratingly vague. Some historians believe only scrolls waiting in warehouses to be catalogued were destroyed. Others suggest significant portions of the main library burned. What we know for certain is this: the library continued to operate after Caesar's fire, though possibly damaged or diminished. The decline continued over the next 3 centuries. In 270 CE, the Roman Emperor Aurelian fought to reclaim Alexandria during a civil war. His forces besieged the city, and fierce fighting erupted in the Bruchion district, the wealthy quarter where the main library complex stood. Much of the district was destroyed. By the late 3rd century, Rome was in crisis. The empire was fragmenting, the economy was collapsing, and funding for intellectual pursuits dried up. The Musaeans' royal subsidies were cut. Scholars began drifting away to other cities. The community that had sustained the library for 5 centuries was crumbling. Then came a cultural shift that would prove devastating. In 391 CE, the Christian emperor Theodosius I issued decrees against pagan temples. The Patriarch of Alexandria, Theophilus, led a mob that destroyed the Serapeum, a daughter library that housed part of Alexandria's collection. The philosopher Theon worked there with his brilliant daughter Hypatia, training the next generation of mathematicians and astronomers. In 415 CE, Hypatia was murdered by a mob, dragged from her chariot and killed in the streets. Her death symbolized the violent transformation sweeping through Alexandria. The old world of pagan scholarship was being dismantled. But even after all of this destruction, some form of library continued to exist. Scholars were still working in Alexandria's libraries into the 6th and 7th centuries. When Arab forces conquered Egypt in 641 CE, a legend emerged centuries later claiming that Caliph Omar ordered the remaining books burned. According to the story, Omar declared that if the books contradicted the Quran, they were heretical and should be destroyed, and if they agreed with the Quran, they were redundant and unnecessary. It makes for a dramatic tale, but most historians now believe this story was fabricated hundreds of years after the conquest, likely as propaganda. The truth is less cinematic, but more heartbreaking. The library probably died slowly through neglect, its papyrus scrolls rotting in the humid Mediterranean climate, its funding disappearing, its purpose forgotten. So what exactly did humanity lose? The scale is almost impossible to comprehend. Of the 123 plays written by Sophocles, only 7 survive today. We have less than 6% of his life's work, and none of what we have was preserved in Alexandria. The same applies to dozens of other playwrights whose names we know, but whose works have vanished completely. We lost the detailed histories written by chroniclers who witnessed Alexander's conquests, the rise of Rome, and countless other pivotal events. These eyewitness accounts, filled with details and perspectives we'll never recover, simply don't exist anymore. We lost scientific and mathematical treatises that could have accelerated human progress by centuries. Archimedes, one of history's greatest minds, wrote a work called The Method that explained his mathematical techniques. These texts survived only because a medieval monk scraped off the writing and reused the parchment to write prayers. That single recycled manuscript, discovered in 1906, revolutionized our understanding of ancient mathematics forever. If one randomly surviving palimpsest could change everything we thought we knew, imagine what was lost in the thousands of scrolls that didn't survive in the library. The destruction of the Library of Alexandria created ripples that affected human civilization for over 1,000 years. When the Western Roman Empire collapsed in the 5th century, Europe entered what's often called the Dark Ages. Would this period have been less intellectually stagnant if the library's knowledge had survived? During the Islamic Golden Age, scholars in Baghdad, Cordoba, and Cairo preserved and expanded upon the fragments of ancient knowledge that remained, translating texts from Greek to Arabic and adding their own discoveries. But they were working from an incomplete picture, trying to reconstruct ideas from scattered references and second-hand accounts. When Renaissance scholars in Europe rediscovered classical texts in the 14th and 15th centuries, they weren't finding the complete works of ancient civilization. They were finding survivors, lucky copies that had escaped destruction through centuries of wars, fires, and neglect. Yet despite this catastrophic loss, the Library of Alexandria's legacy survived its own destruction. The idea at the heart of the library proved immortal, that human knowledge should be gathered, preserved, and made accessible to all, that scholars should be supported and celebrated, regardless of where they come from, that the pursuit of understanding transcends political borders, religious differences, and cultural boundaries. Every modern library, from the Library of Congress with its 173 million items to the British Library with its 200 million holdings, traces its philosophical lineage back to Alexandria. The Internet itself, with its vast digital repositories and free access to information, is perhaps the ultimate expression of the Ptolemies' original vision. The Library of Alexandria stands as humanity's most profound lesson in the fragility of knowledge. It reminds us that civilizations, no matter how powerful, are temporary. Buildings crumble, scrolls burn, hard drives fail, and websites disappear. What seems permanent can vanish in a single generation, lost to fire, water, war, neglect, or simply the passage of time. We'll never know exactly what wisdom those 700,000 scrolls contained. We'll never read the lost plays, study the missing mathematical proofs, or learn from the vanished histories. The scrolls are gone, scattered to dust centuries ago. But perhaps the library's greatest legacy isn't what it preserved, but what it inspired. The drive to know, to discover, to record, and to share what we've learned with those who come after us. That impulse, born in ancient Alexandria, still burns in every library, every university, and every person who believes knowledge is worth protecting. In that sense, the Library of Alexandria never truly vanished. It transformed from a physical place into an immortal idea, one that continues to shape our world more than 2,000 years after the first scroll was placed on its shelves.